we're talking about Breanna Stewart. She's a WNBA player, really big, free agent, signed with the New York Liberty, which is a WNBA team in New York. So that was good explaining. She left the Seattle Storm after 7 years, 2 championships. She was the number 1 pick in 2016 from UConn. So she's good. Like, she's highly sought after free agent. And the reason she made her decision was based upon the way the teams in free agency saw the future of air travel for WNBA teams. Which you're like, why? What does that matter? I'll tell you why. Because WNBA teams fly commercial. Like I do. Like Miranda does. Like we all do. Commercial. As a professional sports team, that does not happen in other professional sports. And the reason they do this is because I guess they got broke-ass owners because the league and the team decided that no one would fly charter, and regardless of an owner's ability to afford it, until every team can afford it. And I'm like, how are you owning a sports team without having this type of money? I don't know. So she chose the Liberty because I guess their owner, one, he can afford it because they were flying people in charters against league rules last year and were fined for it. But basically he's put himself out there and wants to be someone who changes the way air travel works for the WNBA. So I thought this was very fascinating that she would choose a team based upon this. It's just a dumb thing female athletes have to go through, basically.
Yeah, and I think, when you texted me that, I was like, what? And then when I dived into the article, I was like, okay, this makes total sense. Because her argument is for, the health and safety, which is completely valid and extremely accurate because we've seen incidents where professional athletes just fly commercial and they don't go over well. So just to expect just because you're a female athlete, you'll be fine. You can fly commercial, whatever. Whereas in the NBA and all the male athletes, they do not fly commercial. Could you imagine LeBron James getting on a fucking
Southwest flight? B-17?
There's no way. No one would, people would be up in arms if that was the case.
Right.
And again, I'm using the biggest name to be dramatic, but you know what I mean. And I think that, as I read further in the article, she brought up Brittany Griner, which is understandable because, that a player who has gone through what she's gone through, she more than likely is going to have to be chartered around for her own well-being and safety. So the argument was is the rest of her team going to be chartered or it's just going to be her? So that's kind of something the WNBA is trying to navigate. But there's no way that Brittany Griner can just get on a commercial flight.
No, she's low-key on the no-fly list, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
It said. So, girl's gonna have to walk or be chartered.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, I'm sure there's critics who are like, oh, Breanna Stewart left because she's a brat and wants to fly private, because there's always stupid stories spun because it's a female athlete. But if you really read into the article and understand that she really is just pushing for it for the health and safety, and honestly, at the end of the day, equality, because all of the men's athletes are flown private, whereas they have to fly on a commercial plane. And obviously safety, pretty straightforward, but the health. So a player who has a game in New York and flying to Seattle, that has to be so commercial, first of all.
Commercially.
Yes. They're waiting normal flight times. They're waiting in line with everybody else, blah, 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 to fly to Seattle to then play a game. And then if they have to fly back to New York for a home game, she specifically called out long flights, back-to-back games, things like that. That's a lot to put on somebody's body. And I think that she's just trying to make aware of this issue. And she wanted to go to an organization who is better set up for once like they do get the green light from the WNBA, that it will be a thing, and an organization that's actively trying to make private air travel available for the WNBA and female athletes. So I don't blame her.
I literally would not do this job because I hate flying so much. If I had to fly commercially to these games across the country, I'd be like, you know what? I'm good. Thank you very much.
And how many times, too? Like, I'm done after one commercial flight. And again, like, we fly maybe, like, 4 or 5 times a year, potentially. Like, it just depends. Mm-hmm. And I'm, like, over it. So I could only imagine having to do it as consistently as these women have to. I would be exhausted.
This has, like, minor league baseball feels.
Yes.
But, like, at least minor league baseball teams have their own bus. Like, they're not, like, chilling on the Greyhound with strangers. Like,
no.
Imagine you get on a plane and there's an entire WNBA team around you and your little Southwest commercial getting the trail mix and water. That's so weird.
It's honestly giving amateur sports because we've all been, like, on a flight where there's like a little league team or like a young, like all the players gather around.
Worst, yeah.
Yeah, and then they're waiting for like their equipment to come off of the fucking belt thing and stuff like that. Meanwhile, these are professional athletes, and I think that because of the viewpoint from the larger population of the WNBA, that it's just not seen in the same light as the NBA, which we've already talked about that, and we could talk about it for days and days and days. And I think it was nice to see, I think who was quoted in the ESPN article, like Kevin Durant.
Oh, Kyrie Irving.
Okay, yeah, but just him saying, like, because he's a part of the Players Association, and saying that the WNBA and the female athletes deserve to fly private, and like obviously they want it to be a thing, but it's just going to take time. And he said, like, it's going to take patience, but the WNBA players have waited long enough. And it's true. Like, how long has the WNBA been around? And they've been pushing for private planes, and they still don't have it in 2023.